Join me in welcoming up to the digital stage, Sheri Rosenthal, Dr. Sheri Rosenthal. Sheri, how are you?
I'm great, and I'm really happy to be here and excited to share with everybody. Obviously, everyone is like pumped up and ready to go.
Mm. Sheri, we've sent information prior to the event talking about you. I know probably half the folks here already have learned from you as members of our community. For anyone who is newer, I'm not going to give the formal, deserved introduction other than from everything I see, you are really considered to be the most prominent teacher. You have 65,000 folks that learn from you just in what you publish and teach through the internet. And you have led retreats and taught others how to lead retreats at a level that you're really in your own league. And so this is special to have you here today. There may be some of you who are here today because you want to create benefit, and maybe you're not sure about retreats. I want to ask you a question, Sheri, about how this all started for you. Because no matter where somebody sits on that spectrum, I think contemplating what even draws us to the power of a retreat is very important. Tell us about the retreat that introduced you to retreats, changed your career. What do you remember about that retreat?
Okay, so basically, for those of you who don't know me, I used to be a podiatrist, and I was unhappy practicing medicine. Although I loved my patients, I didn't quite like medicine. In my family, you get to be a doctor or a lawyer, so I chose doctor, but that really wasn't what I wanted to do in life. And it was about after 16 years of practice, I just had enough. And I didn't know what to do, and in my crazy Aries way, I put my practice up for sale. It actually sold in 2 months, and then I signed up for a retreat, my very first one. It was with Don Miguel Ruiz, the author of The Four Agreements, and it was in Mexico. And because I had never gone on one before, I figured, what's the worst that could happen? I mean, if I don't like the people, I could leave. And so I went, and it was one of the most incredible first experiences I had. Let's just put it that way. It was life changing. I learned so much about myself, but that was just the beginning. And it led me down a totally different life path, like a 180. I had no idea when I sold my practice what I was going to do next. But after that retreat, I knew I was going to be
Mm.
working on myself with Don Miguel over the next years. And I ended up teaching the Four Agreements for like 14 years, writing 3 books, and it was life-changing for me. Like,
Mm.
that one retreat had me training with him for 8 years, and then
Mm.
in part of that, 2 of those years, I ran his business as his business manager,
Mm.
running his retreats and designing them and his workshops and all of that. So it really did change my life in every way possible. And then in 2014, I started Wanderlust Entrepreneur because back in 2003, when I was running my own retreats, I wanted to be very legal, and Florida is a seller of travel state. We'll talk about that later. And so I became a travel company.
Mm.
And in doing that, I started doing retreat management and seeing how many people never actually ran their retreats because they didn't fill or they lost money. And that's why in 2014, I started Wanderlust to train retreat leaders in how to design, price, market, and monetize their retreats and run them legally and safely. That's the doctor part of me. So that is how that all transpired.
Mm. So from podiatry to retreats. Didn't
I
you
know.
didn't you tell me the joke that you've always been working at the soul level? Like,
Okay. So that was like people tease me that I was working with souls and now I'm working with
I
souls.
love it. I love
I
it.
know, it's corny, it's such a podiatry joke,
I
really.
I'm very comfortable with that. Okay, so Sherry, we're gonna double click way into
Okay.
what's the keys to design, what's the keys to actually profiting. But before we move on, I have to ask, is there anything, maybe there is, maybe there's not, from that first retreat that you remember that Don Miguel did that was like interesting or surprising? There's a part of me that would want to be at that retreat. I might never have that chance, but it changed your whole life. Is there anything that stood out that like really caught you off guard or that you remember today?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was obviously having a medical background, so it's very didactic. You know, you're given information, you digest the information, you learn material. On a retreat, it's a different format. I mean, I don't even remember what I was expecting to happen on that first retreat. I thought I was going to get information on how my life should be better. But instead, he teaches through activities
Mm,
that are aligned with the location. So
mm,
they are very experiential. And the whole idea there is to get you out of your head where I spent all of my time. So, you know, it was a totally different thing for me to embody an
mm,
experience rather than just hearing it didactically
mm,
or just having an auditory experience. I was having a balls to bones, full kinesthetic experience
mm,
that was advising me. And
mm,
that was different. And it opened up things that had never had a chance to open up before.
mm. Thanks for sharing that. And so let's double click into this because when I first met you last year, you kind of broke everything into these two categories. Like you've got to know how to create that transformative experience, and you have
Mhm.
to understand some things from a business model standpoint.
Mhm.
So let's start on the creating the experience, since that's what we're talking about right now. Because your first retreat taught you something about place and embodiment. And now you teach that today. For
Mhm.
somebody here who, whether they're newer at retreats or they're just sitting with the question, how do I do that? What are the keys to creating that transformative experience? From your perspective, what are the first things we should think about?
Well, for me, I feel it's very important that everything we do have alignment. And when it comes to retreats, for in my mind, alignment means you are aligning what you teach and share with a location that can help teach the material for you. And that is where Don Miguel was really an expert. So I'm going to give some practical examples for people so they get where I'm coming from, because then it'll make a lot more sense. So I'm just going to say, how about you run knitting retreats? So, yes, of course, you could take your group to Costa Rica and be in a beautiful retreat center. And yes, it's going to be stunning and the place is going to be beautiful. But is there really alignment? Would it not be better to take them to New Zealand when they're in sheep shearing season and they're processing the
Mm,
wool to turn it into, you know, wool? So
mm,
you see the whole process and see natural dyeing and how it's turned into skeins and just the whole entire experience of knitting, which is like 7 or 8,000 year old process to really get into it and appreciate it at a totally different level.
mm,
Or let's say you were a coach that taught people to speak from the stage. And yes, you could also do that anywhere in the world, right? You could do it at a hotel in Atlanta where, you know, people could fly in also. But what if you took your people to Europe and rented a small amphitheater and had them speaking in the energy of ancient orators?
mm,
You see what I'm saying?
mhm,
Or I'm going to throw something really abstract out there. What if you love to teach people about knives. I mean,
Mm.
retreats, I'm saying these examples because retreats can be on any subject. When we think of retreats, we think of spiritual or religious retreats or yoga retreats, but it could be on any subject. It's about building community. So let's say you love knives and learning how to use them properly. Why not take them to Japan where they forge amazing knives and learn which knife you use for which purpose and how to actually use a knife properly. So you come home and when you do your next dinner party, it's a transformation. Now you really know what knives you need, how to really make those perfect cubes, which you've never been able to do before. So you can see that place and location has alignment with what you are teaching. And also, you don't necessarily have to go around the world to find that. Surprisingly, even within your own country and location, there's a lot of history that you can tap into that's quite interesting that can align. Like, if I was doing, a writing retreat, maybe I'd wanna go to Edinburgh because that city is the literary city of Europe,
Mm.
and there's so many fun things to do in between the writing retreat activities that are all about famous authors.
I want to just appreciate your very last point, Sherry, about how it may be about traveling to some place far away for all the reasons in your examples. I had an experience where we were hosting a handful of groups, and then we've had individuals come to our offices for like a VIP day. Actually, Edward's holiday. I was looking at you, and this I just thought of this, Edwards. Edwards, where did we take you? 5 minutes from our offices. There's a national park 5 minutes from here, and I fell into this accidentally, Sherry, where we had a group that we were going to lead through a reflection exercise about their life's purpose. And I realized the rock formations at the park, according to the plaque, are 400 million years old. And I can't tell you how many people we've brought over there to do breath work or journaling who are like, yeah, it's very different to think about the
Uh-huh.
impact I'm making sitting on these rocks that have been here for 400 million years. And it's 5 minutes from here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's why I'm saying if you look into the history and background of places, you will find things you didn't even know were in your backyard.
Yeah. A good example, our annual event at Exchange, Transformation by Design, which half of you have been there, we host that on the campus at Case Western Reserve.
Right.
And many of our students know that campus is where some of the methodologies we use, one of them being appreciative inquiry, another one being experiential learning, were born. And it's fascinating just to acknowledge that we are at a place where ideas were born and how that starts
Yes.
to shift things for people. And all of us have that, like you said, we just have to do a little bit of investigation, you know?
Exactly, John. Exactly. Thank you.
Let me ask you, okay, so if I'm wearing the hat of, okay, this makes sense, this is inspiring, think about tying experience to place. What's like the next, to you, it could be obvious, but to us, like a mistake that we could make when we're planning, designing the retreat, before we get to the business side, because that'll be a big thing, but just in creating the transformation. So I hear you on alignment with place. That's inspiring. What else can we be thinking about on that side?
Well, to really go into, can I find a way to teach a point or open space for a revelation without actually having to teach something verbally? Is there an activity that I can design? And there's plenty of books out there about ceremony and transformative exercises, a lot of good books. And you can do activities that do the same thing as the didactic learning. And I'm not saying don't teach, verbally, of course, do that. But if there's a combination, it is really helpful.
Mm,
So if you can make the time to And that was something Miguel did so well. He could create a ceremony out of nothing. He's just brilliant that way, where he sees something, opening in the woods and creates a story about it and an activity that you have to
Mhm.
do.
Yeah.
Like once we were at a set of pyramids and he said, "Okay, I want you to pick up a rock and I want you to bury that rock as if it was your funeral. And I want you to hear what every single person close to you in your life would say about you at that funeral. And are you happy with what they're saying?"
Mm.
And, people were weeping on the floor with their rock. It's like just something simple like that to just sit and really listen what those people would say about you, and are you really happy about that? And if you're not, are you ready to change that
Mm.
so that funeral is different? Just from a rock in the dirt. So, this kind of thing is what has people crying on the ground and really opening them to see things from a different point of view. And if we can do that, yes, we can have our didactic learning. Yes, we can have our kinesthetic, more balls to bones kind of teaching, and in a location that supports that. And that to me is the beauty of a retreat, because as we all know, there's other live events. You can do workshops, you can do live events from the stage, and they all have their place and they're all good. But retreats are something different. And it kind of irks me, I have to say, when everyone now is calling everything a retreat when it is not.
Mm. Mm. As I've heard you say, they're just running a workshop in a pretty place.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, so I had no plans on telling you something today, Sheri. I'm going to give you a thank you right now, and you have no idea what I'm about to tell you. So when we had you come visit our members last year, you said something along the lines of you can turn anything into a ceremony.
Mhm.
And a few of you may know the story I'm about to share. One of the things that I was inspired by was the idea that we can create a retreat experience anytime we gather with others. Like, yeah, we're here to talk about the business today and like a retreat and the business of it. But like even creating ceremony is like I'm leading 20 leaders for 3 days next week. Like I'm thinking about beginnings and endings and ceremonies, and I don't care if they call it a retreat. Last fall, I took my daughter Sierra and my two bonus daughters, it's a better name than stepdaughters, Joy and Coral, to a dad-daughter camp. It's something we do several times a year. Joy and Coral, their father passed away a number of years ago. They're 11 today. And you were the one who planted the seed for me that while I was at this camp with them, which is right on the shore of Lake Erie, which is really kind of cool to be able to go just be on the water, I was going to
Mhm.
create a ceremony. And you know what I had them do? I had Sierra, my daughter, Joy and Coral, walk the beach in solitude, pick up a rock. You're the one that gave me this idea.
That's
I've never told you this. And come back. We buried the rocks along with a little bag that I brought with me with some of Chris, their father's ashes. And I
oh,
created a ceremony with these girls because part of my job, I believe, is to keep their father's memory alive.
of
I've led
course.
a lot of events. That one meant more to me than I think any event I've ever led. And I'm sharing that because my hope is that what all of you consider is that if you're leading a retreat that people paid for, great. But like creating a transformative ceremonial experience can happen between you and the person you meet at the coffee shop an hour from now. So
Mhm.
I digress. Thank you for letting me share that. And thank you for that inspiration because you told us this a year ago and that stuck
Mhm.
with me. The
Yeah.
rock, that was all I had. So
Yeah, just a rock. Because people often think that they need all kinds of fancy stuff. You do not.
Mm.
You just need an open heart and mind.
Yeah. Let's Sherry, let's jump to the business side.
Okay.
So when it comes to the business model,
Mhm.
and I know a lot of folks here, based on the chat box, have led retreats, so they understand the common struggles. Some folks here haven't. What's the easiest place to start if someone hasn't led a retreat? Like low hanging mistakes, low hanging ways to fix profitability issues. Where do you start when you think about the business model side of a retreat?
Well, just a simple run through. And as many people said in the chat, they know I have a 3-day fun event coming up, and I do teach a lot of this there. But I always start with structure. So it's always good if you're planning on a retreat to have that in place. But before I say a little bit about the structure, I want to say this from a very personal, heartfelt place. I feel like when we do a retreat, we are responsible for people's physical bodies, mental state, spiritual state. I take that responsibility very seriously because I have hearts in my hand.
Mm.
And I feel like we don't think that way so much when we're just doing a workshop or, when we're just teaching online and stuff. But in an intimate retreat, it's a totally different thing. So, because of that, because I am responsible for those three things, that is why the structure is important. And in your business, you want to make sure that your business is set up correctly. This is just like maybe all of you guys know this already, but I'm going to just say it anyways to have a proper business license, to make sure you're taking money in your business account, not your personal account, to make sure that you know how to write a proper cancellation policy because you are running a trip. To make sure you have legal forms, to make sure you're insured, both for your retreat and what comes out of your mouth as you're going to be giving advice in most likely. So like those kinds of things and not spending the money coming in for deposits in your business should be kept in an escrow account or a savings account. It doesn't have to be an escrow account, but you should not be spending money ahead of time. That money should be kept separately from your operating funds.
Mm.
So these are like some very basic business model things.
I I want to appreciate, while what you're saying can sound basic, those of us who've put on events will jump in and say, when you talk about not only the legal protections, the waivers, the agreements, when you talk about if you're leading somebody through an experience, I'll give an example of one of our team members who does that. This is the difference between um, you protect yourself or you get a little lazy and you're out of business in an instant. And that's not an exaggeration. I had a mentor of mine who told me years ago, most businesses that do these types of things will go out because of some minutia detail that they didn't want to pay attention to in a legal document. I'm like, that's bullshit. I have lived it. Like Leah on our team, she leads a breathwork experience at our annual event. It's like 45, 60 minutes. A number of you here have been through it. And Leah's kind of a superhuman in that she not only can do that, and it's life-changing. And by the way, somebody asked what's the difference between a workshop and like an experience. Well, Leah doesn't talk to people at them about anything, like about their traumas or about, discovering who they are, who they're meant to be. She has them breathe and they come out of it and they say it gave them those things more than if we talked at them. That's one answer. But I've also noticed when Leah leads that, this is just a compliment, her precision in how she is letting people know how to deal with the experience, what to do if something happens. It is not accidental what she's saying in those opening 3 or 4 minutes. So I just want to appreciate. It could sound basic. It's everything to care about that. Um, where would you go next? So now okay, I have to have these fundamentals in place. What about, I've heard you talk a lot about the value proposition of a retreat and the idea that, you're not selling a trip. You're not selling time at a nice place. That might be a component. What is it that we're actually selling? I think this is so key, especially for those of us who don't have a lot of background in understanding marketing and positioning. Thoughts on
Well,
this?
the bottom line is you're selling becoming
Mm,
in some way, right? You're selling a transformation that your people, if you really understand your ideal client and what they want and need in their life, they're starting at point A, whatever point A is, and your retreat is taking them on a journey to point B. So there has to be some kind of transformational arc in the design of the retreat because you're not selling. I mean, look, I've gone on, I don't know how many retreats over the years. And of course, I appreciate, let me know what the hotel is or the venue and what food we're eating. And I think all of that is critical. But in the end, what is building value for the retreat that allows you to charge what you should be charging is what they're walking away with. And there needs to be a promise. In essence, there's a promise for everything we sell, right? Whether it's even this little free conversation we're having, there's a promise here. There's a promise for every product and program and coaching that we have in our business. There has to be some outcome that we are basically selling. And it's very important. And I see this all the time when retreat leaders say to me, "Oh, Sheri, everyone is questioning the price of my retreat." I don't even need to see your retreat sales page or know what you're doing. You already told me that you did not build value for the transformation on your page or the experience at all, because people do not question what obviously is valuable. I
mm,
mean, maybe they don't have the money and they really don't have the money, but I'm not talking about that situation. I'm talking about people who just question the money because it just looks like another trip that they could go on to AI and say, "Can you create a trip for me to go to Costa Rica?" And they go to a retreat center that already has spa treatments and stuff like that. This is a different thing.
mm, mm. Do you agree with this statement? So when you say selling who we're becoming, would you agree that we ought to think about we're selling a shift in somebody's identity?
Oh, absolutely.
Mm,
Absolutely. I
yeah.
mean, if I look back to that first retreat, it gave me a whole different perception and to see who I could be in my
Mm,
life, that I didn't have to be Sheri, who was the foot doctor. Sheri could be anything. It opened possibilities that I didn't even know existed for myself. That was over the top.
mm. One thing I appreciate about this conversation right now is, and this relates to the question of, well, what's the difference between a workshop and a transformative experience? Well, as it relates to the promise, think of what most people consider a workshop is like you said earlier, like I'm teaching information. The problem is information 25 years ago, you could see information as feeling transformative because just finding it was amazing. That idea, right? That doesn't work anymore. So the information has been commoditized. So if you want to charge more, you got to move out of that space to this experience is about how you will change. And I just think that's so relevant today.
Mhm. Yes, exactly. Mhm.
Sherry, I think a big question that anybody would have experienced or they've never put on a retreat, I think a fear. I think a deep underlying fear is filling the retreat.
Mhm.
Like somebody could be listening right now saying, okay, I get this. I got to make it about the space. Cool idea. Love that. Okay. I got the promise has to be about their identity shift, their transformation. Okay, cool. And our students, like you have a set of tools to like help deliver on that. Like, cool. There still, I think, can be an underlying fear of what if I get all that, but I'm worried about filling enough. Number one, so I don't lose my ass financially, but number two, so I don't fail at living into my own purpose. You know, there's real fear there. What do you have to say to that?
Exactly. I think most people have like imposter syndrome when it comes to retreats. And we're like, oh my God, can I really fill this? Are people really going to pay me for this? You know, that's it's normal to think that way. However, taking strategic action is what helps combat that. And I think there needs to be a combination of things. The retreat industry is constantly shifting. And it's very interesting to me because I started back on my first retreat in 1998. And here we are now in 2026. And back then, we had no social media. So the way you filled your retreat was through more intimate experiences. Like, for example, back then, I would go to independent bookstores and teach about the four agreements, and they would sell books, and it was great. Or I would do things at the local health food store, or, those kinds of activities that were more local, or I would travel to different independent bookstores. That's how I grew my whole list,
Mm-hmm.
basically.
Yeah.
But today, we depend heavily on social media, and a lot of warm and fuzzy people, let's just say, they don't love social media. And so they feel very conflicted, like, I don't love the social media as much, but for some reason, the old ways of creating relationships seem to have disappeared. And I think relationships are what sell retreats. You can't just post on social media, "Oh, join me, January 4th through the 23rd in Bali for this retreat. Sign up now, get the early bird special." That's gonna sell nothing. Personal invitations to people you know and conversations on the phone or Zoom are going to make a big difference. In my last retreat, I rented a 161-foot yacht in Croatia. We went up the Aegean Sea from Dubrovnik to Split and back. That retreat filled from people I spoke to,
Mm-hmm.
not from just posting on social media.
Yeah.
So it's the action you take in making that connection and saying to somebody, I have a special experience coming up and I really feel like you would benefit from this. Do you have a few minutes to hop on a call with me so I can share what we're doing and why I think this is so important for you? And yes, it's a different kind of marketing. And I'm not saying you shouldn't do your social media. You still have to do that, but not as pure advertisement. Needs to be education-based marketing because if you look at marketing in general, when you're marketing a retreat, the top 3% of all the human beings will know that a retreat is what they need to solve a problem.
Mm-hmm.
But the top 10% of people are the people who are aware they have a problem, but the bottom part of that 10%, the other 7% don't really understand that your retreat is a solution for the problem they know they have and need help with. All the other people below that need a lot more education before you're going to get them on a retreat. But most retreat leaders are only marketing to the top 3%, and that is like nothing when you could have the top 10%. Think of the difference that makes in how your retreat would fill if you would just do some education-based marketing. In other words, share on social media about the problem people are having,
Mm.
why they're having it, and the impact it is having, and what will happen if they don't solve it. What is the impact in their life? Because if the impact of not solving the problem is higher than the price of the retreat, when you present the retreat as a solution, it'll be a no-brainer. But if they don't understand the cost of staying where they are, the cost of the retreat makes no sense. So this is very, very important because that is where the value becomes important, where people see the value. You're not just running another yoga retreat to Costa Rica. You understand? So when you make that clear in your social media marketing, instead of that stupid marketing that people do saying, join here, like who gives a crap? You really need to let people understand why a retreat is a solution versus a fun trip with a bunch of people.
I appreciate what you're sharing right now, Sherry, because I think what you're sharing is true for every one of us, no matter what we sell. At the end of the day, somebody's going to purchase when they feel like the value is worth more than the price. Like, this is so fundamental. I also think you're naming something about marketing in the modern world. Like, I'll give you my own example for what it's worth for if this helps everybody. I don't post on social media at all because I have an expectation that it's going to reach people, and I don't post because I think it's going to grow the amount of awareness about me. Right or wrong, I've resigned to this idea that I'm fighting in a bloody ocean, and that was like 15 years ago. Doesn't work anymore. The reason I post, like if any of you want to go see this, on my LinkedIn, I have these 3 articles called The 3 Secrets of Conscious Convening. I wrote those strategically so that before I talk to a key client, I say, go read these if you want to understand what I'm all about. And I land big deals using those posts as my messaging that take somebody 2 minutes to read before they get on a meeting with me. So I love your whole point of like, put stuff out strategically. I actually regularly put stuff out, and this is not an exaggeration or I literally am writing it. There is one leader of one organization that I'm writing that for, who I'll be meeting with in 3 weeks. And I'll say, hey, before the meeting, if you want to read this post I put up, and literally I wrote it for him or her. So I just encourage all of you to hear what Sheri's saying and think, oh yeah, if I want to get value out there and I'm going to talk to people about the retreat, put it out, have them read it before you get on, and don't expect that the world sees what you post.
Exactly.
That's coming from a non-marketing expert. Sheri, okay, we got to stay on the business side. Your origin story reveals something that anybody could overlook, and you correct me if this is off base, I think is the most important part of the money-making side, which is when you went to that first retreat with Don Miguel, you stayed on as a student. I know you're a big advocate of, look, if you're going to make all this work, you have to look at the economics holistically, and you have to consider that if you do a retreat and it helps people or they like it or they love it, maybe you're doing a disservice to not have them continue with you. Say something about how important this is and how we should think about it.
Well, my point of view is first of all, retreats should not be ever one and done. If you don't have a follow-up offering for your people to continue the process, I consider that abandonment. Why? Because someone has an experience, just like I did on my first retreat, where I had all of these realizations and all of these epiphanies, only to go back to my same life that is structured in the same way with the same influences in it that created the situation I was in in the first place? How can we really expect people who have this huge change and realization on a retreat to go back? And as soon as you get back, everyone's like, oh, what was the retreat like? What did you do? What did you learn? And you can't even express to them what happened. And you expect them to take that change and implement it in their life. That is challenging. Believe me, I've been through it myself. So it's the follow up that you make, the offer you make to your people to continue working with you, to take that wonderful realizations that they have, and now implement them in their life and find a way to make that real. And that's why I ended up studying with Don Miguel for 8 years. I spent over $100,000 studying with him, and I would spend it again in a skinny minute because it changed my life in every way, shape, and form.
Mm.
So, I mean, it was actually more I spent with him than in medical school. And it has helped me more in my life than the medical school.
So I want to ask you a follow on this idea of offering something on the back end. And before I forget, I want everyone to know here, Sheri has a 3-day event that you're hosting coming up. And we'll talk more about it before we're done. But I'm just going to say this right now. You all should sign up for it because you can for like $1. Even if, Sheri, cover your ears, even if you're just there to watch the genius that Sheri is, both as a teacher and in her business, right? So I would go to the event to learn how to run profitable retreats. I would also go for you to watch Sheri. And something I know is, Sheri, everything you do is transparent and in the open. And so I'll make sure we point everybody to that. There's a page in the workbook. We're going to point to that because I know today is going to both inspire and leave people thinking, okay, I need a little more. I need more. I need more. But let's keep going. I want to go one more question on this. Give a few examples of what do you think are the most common, best offers to have at a retreat for someone to stay with you, and anything you want to tell us about keys to actually making that offer. Should it be done during the retreat, not done during the retreat? Anything you want to say on that? Because I think that helps to kind of complete a picture, I think, for some of us.
Right. So as far as when the offer should be made, it depends on what the offer is. But if it's a post-retreat offer, it should be made the day before they're leaving. That's normally when we make that offer. And there are many offers you can make. I mean, if you have a high-end offer, that's always the best because people are so engaged and ready to continue. You're making the best of that experience. So if you have maybe a high-end private coaching or a mastermind, but if you don't, it could be just your regular coaching program. It could be a program. It could be a membership program. It could be literally anything like a support circle. So there are many things that you can offer. So a lot of people say, well, I want to do retreats, but I am not a coach, so I don't have a coaching package. Well, fine. Do a follow-up circle where maybe you have speakers come in on the same subject you were teaching. Like this, if you get creative, there's so much that you could do. There's also things you could do before the retreat. So if someone signs up for a retreat, you might offer pre-retreat VIP days, post-retreat VIP days. There are so many things, if you're just open, that can quadruple or more the income you make from your retreat. And your people will be well supported and cared for.
I'm going to take my own inspiration from what you just shared, and I'm going to give everyone here an example of what you're talking about. I can't name the client, but there's a membership organization that we are leading their live event at some point in the future, in the next, call it, couple months. And for those of you who've been certified at Exchange, this will all make sense. For everybody else, I'll do everything I can to make this make sense, because there's an underlying principle. So part of what we are counseling this organization to ask is, during our live event, and they don't call it a retreat, but the way we lead it, because we're facilitating it, the whole thing is kind of like a retreat. During the live event, there are several exercises that we are leading where they are learning from each other. We have one called wisdom circles. And one of the things that we're very strategically preparing to have happen is we're going to be leading wisdom circles during the event. Now, we've done this a million times. We already know the response. Everyone's going to love it because we've done it. They're going to like it. And part of what they're going to be offering on the back end is you can continue to do wisdom circles with other members. One of the reasons I have seen that as a really intelligent approach is one of the easiest things to sell somebody is something that they've already benefited from and they've already experienced the value. So we're going to be leading wisdom circles real time, and then it'll be like minutes or hours later. We're going to say, by the way, how great was that? You want to keep doing it? Great. Here's how to keep doing it. So
Exactly.
yeah, just consider, what can you be doing in the moment that is so valuable, and everybody admits how valuable it is, that if the only thing you offered is we're going to keep doing that once a week, once a month, once a whatever, online, no cost, that's a good starting point, I think. What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, you can certainly do that. I find that on a retreat, we see different conversion rates, but we've seen between 20 and 70% conversion rates on retreats to high ticket items. It's
Mm,
crazy.
yeah.
And just like what happened with me. I mean, anything you offer, people will be excited about if it can help them
Mm,
further that process.
mm. It's, I think it's important that everybody hears that number you just shared. Like the extent to which, when done right, done well, a retreat can lead to a back end opportunity. Those economics are not too different than for us, many of our events. Like it makes sense. Many of you have been to our events. We do our best to create value in the room, and we create vehicles where if people want to come learn about doing more, the economics that you're sharing are familiar to us.
Exactly. Even during the event that I have coming up, I'm very transparent through the whole thing because there are techniques in there that they're going to use also to fill their retreats. So I always like to say, do you guys see what I'm doing right now?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's yeah.
Yeah. Okay, Sheri, here's what I want to ask. So the start of this conversation, there's an invitation to consider the place, in alignment with the place. There's an encouragement to think about learning through experience and even ceremony and ritual, anything other than just talking at people. They don't need to fly in for that. You don't even need to be in person for that. You've brought up this idea that we got to remember when we're marketing, there's a positioning, there's a promise. It's their transformation, their shift in identity. It's not you're going to a nice place for a few days. It's that, but that's not really the promise. That's not what people are going to pay for. You've pointed out on the business side, we've got to cover our butts with these fundamentals, protect the risk, and understand that the economics really are sustainable when you're there to help people to continue to be helped. What have we not covered that if we ended right now, you'd get off and you'd be kicking yourself and you'd think, I wish he would have at least asked me this so I had a chance to share this? If someone here is not able to go to your 3-day event, I'm going to tell everybody why they should in a second. But if they can't, and they're going to go try and do this on their own, what's one more thing that you consider to be critical?
I think that they need to be really careful in what they're doing because the thing about retreats is there's a lot of risk with it.
Mm,
The pricing has to be very specific. People are used to pricing for like workshops and big events. Pricing for a retreat is totally different. And so, like, even in our course, We have a special proprietary Excel sheet, and we also have an AI tool that we created that you could use too. But these are special pricing techniques to make sure that even if you don't have a full retreat, you're still profiting. That's the difference. So there are aspects, and that's why retreats feel so risky because people are doing them without a proper education, again, in design, in pricing, in marketing, and in monetizing on the legalities. Those 5 items need to be addressed
Mm.
if you really want a successful, safe retreat. So those are the cores: design, pricing, marketing, monetizing, and legalities and safety. If you have all of those in place, great. If you're lacking in something, you better get help because seriously, people can sue you if something happens. You could be out and about and someone gets stung by a bee and go into anaphylactic shock. Do you know how to handle that?
Hmm. Yeah.
You are responsible. So
Hmm.
these are the things that I teach. And of course, I think about those things because I'm a physician, but still, in the bigger picture, these are things everyone needs to know. And that's why I said earlier, when you're creating a retreat, you're taking care of people physically, mentally, and spiritually, really. And if you take that seriously, you will get educated and you won't. This is what I hear from a lot of people. Oh, I'm just going to do a test retreat. Really? I don't do
There's no
tests.
test.
Yeah, there's no test.
Yeah.
This is a retreat. Anything can happen, and I've seen it. Well, my company, travel company, has designed or managed over 1,000 retreats. When you get in those numbers, not that you've done 5 retreats and it all worked out well, no.
Hmm.
When you do 1,000 retreats, you see all kinds of things. And so it's those things that I have seen that I'm always excited about educating my people about so they don't ever have to experience that. Or if they do, they know what to do.
Mm. As someone who has not necessarily put on a lot of retreats, but many events where there's a lot of risk, I appreciate what you're sharing. I had a business coach who once said to me, "The less risk we perceive, the more risk there is." And and that has sat with me for a very long time. You know,
Right.
if we don't think there's a lot of risk, we're actually simply creating more risk.
Exactly. For
Yeah.
me, like the way I think of it, John, is tell me all the risk. Let
Yeah.
me educate myself, and then I'm good. Now I can be full out in the transformation because I know I dotted my I's and crossed my T's and I'm all cool.
Somebody asked a question that came through the chat. The team put it back in front of me in a communication channel, and and I want to acknowledge the question and get your take on this, Sheri. The question is essentially, hey, I appreciate the idea of the promise.
Mhm.
What if I don't know that I can actually deliver on a big promise? So I appreciate that. And I'm going to give my response and give you a second to think about yours, Sheri. And by the way, you agree or disagree with my response too, please. I'm wired a certain way. Not everyone is wired this way. I find that one of the values of making a big, bold promise is how it forces me to organize myself so I actually create more value.
Mhm.
So I actually like the pressure it puts on me because in the end, that's a win, 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 win. As opposed to like hedging on the promise. I actually I don't like that idea. I would rather overpromise and then double over deliver. And someone might say, well, that's not how it works. Well, I don't know. What's your thought on that?
I'm all for it because that's how I am too. I
Yeah.
I know what I'm setting out to do, how I'm offering it. I have confidence in myself and my abilities and what I have to share. Obviously, I'm not in control with how people take what I'm saying, but I think, when you keep doing this, you know your techniques, you know how people are going to respond to them, and you have faith in yourself and the people who you're helping that they will have an experience. So I'm all for bold promises.
Mm.
I'm an all out kind of girl anyway, which I think you can kind of tell just from listening to me. So I agree with you full out, John.
I said that was going to be the one, but there's one more I'm going to bring up because I see several people made a comment about this.
Okay.
So we've talked mostly about in person.
Hmm.
Here we are online. And I've actually hosted online retreats,
Yes,
and
so am I.
a few folks have asked questions.
Yes.
Does anything you've shared, how does it translate, and how do you define a retreat? How does this apply to online? Anything that comes up when you think about that?
Absolutely. During the pandemic, we did online retreats. At the time, Megan, who was running the company with me, she's one of my 4 agreement family members. It was we did one in the winter. She was living in Colorado. It was snowing outside. Her husband built this fire outside. She took her laptop outside and was filming herself doing this ceremony, and everyone was following along with the same fire ceremony on their own desk because they had burning bowls. And so we were doing a ceremony all together virtually. And it's amazing what you could actually do virtually. We've had vision walks where we did a meditation during the retreat and then gave them time to go out, do what we asked them to do, like walk outside and have this experience and then come back and share. It was really very similar to what we would have done in person in a vision walk. So it's really, if you have some really great techniques like that, it could be very, very similar.
Mm.
So is it, perfect like that? We're not all together, we can hug, but you could create something as close as possible where people come away with quite an experience from that.
Mm. Thanks for that example. There was a comment that came in the chat, and I want to appreciate someone made a comment that I'm interpreting as kind of a counterbalance to something that I said a second ago that you agreed with. You and I are both along the lines of like promise a lot because of how it organizes something in us to deliver a lot.
Yes.
Jody Hubble said, "That's great when you have experience." I appreciate the spirit of that comment, Jody. And I want to offer from my experience, which don't forget, everybody who has it at some point didn't. So we've all traveled the same path. And one thing I can say from personal experience, there's a quote that many of you have heard us cite from Peter Drucker, who talked about how the task of leadership is to align our strengths so much so that our weaknesses become irrelevant. And we can debate or agree or not on the aspects of that quote. One of the things that I have found, Sheri, to be true, and I feel it in what you're saying, even if you haven't said it directly, is that at the end of the day, I'm going to plan whatever I'm going to plan. They're going to show up with whatever expectations and openness they're going to show up with. My experience has shown me that there is an organizing principle in the relationship between my intention and my genuine care and concern for the people and what ends up happening. And to me, everything that happens at the retreat, the extent to which it's actually tethered to some place in our hearts, that makes up for not having done 1,000 retreats. People feel that. It doesn't mean it's going to make everything perfect. But one thing I feel in everything you're saying, Sheri, even when you talk about mitigating risk, is like there's a care and a compassion. Any thoughts on that? Because I think that in and of itself is something to lean into. If you don't have any other experience to lean into, just give such a shit about people that they're going to feel it, that they're not going to care if you don't have the retreat perfect. That's one guy's opinion. Any thoughts on that?
I'm a big proponent from the Four Agreements of that love changes many things and makes space for many things. And
Mm,
my intent on a retreat is twofold. So one, be present to love. Just love on people. It really changes. Even if you don't have experience, you have love. Everyone has that. That's one thing. The second thing is if you can be present at a retreat in a neutral and open place, that alone changes everything. People feel our resistance to them.
mm,
If you like in the
mm,
Four Agreements, it's about not taking people personally, right? Then that comes from not judging. So if I'm in a space of a retreat and I'm neutral, meaning no judgment to anything, whatever they say to me will not tweak me, will not scare me. I understand that they're having an experience, and it's my job to love them
mm,
through it. Now, that doesn't mean I'm letting people walk on me. I'm from Brooklyn. That doesn't happen. But I will love them and I will hear them and
mm,
I will do my best to guide if
mm,
they're open. So that helps. Even if you have no experience, if you could be neutral
mm.
and you can have an open heart, you can accomplish anything.
That's a really meaningful invitation for all of us to think about. Sheri, I want to make sure that before we run out of time, which will be in just a couple minutes here, anything you want to tell everybody about your 3-day event, April 21st through the 23rd? I've already spilled the beans that folks can show up for $1 if they want. It's just part of your business model, which I think is genius in and of itself. What will they learn at that event?
The event is for community building and for people to come together with like minds. So, like last year, we had over 5,000 people. We're hoping for over 6,000 this year. So, it is
Awesome.
so fun. The thing is, it is by donation. You guys can pay what you want. I mean, if you donate over $100, you could keep the event. So if you feel like you may not be able to participate entirely, you can always make a donation like that. If you feel like I don't know Sheri from a hole in the wall, so I'm just going to donate $1 right now. If you want, even at the end of the event, if you feel like paying $100, you can. We have an alternative way of you also getting to keep the event if you want to. And I share that during the event, which is really fun. But basically, it is over 20 hours of content. And so the first 3 days are the main core of the event. And I cover a lot of important information. We have newbies, we have experienced retreat leaders, we have travel professionals, we have meeting planners, we have all kinds of people coming to this event, including venues. And there's so much that we actually cover. So, like on day one, I talk about the trends for 2026. I talk about magnetic messaging. I talk about pricing. The second day, I talk about legalities, money mindset, monetization. On the third day, we talk about sales calls and writing high converting sales pages for retreats and about reverse engineering your marketing. And at the end of every day, we have a Q&A, and I have some of my students come on, and it's really fun because they share their boo-boos and the things that they learned and the things that were really wonderful for them. And in our bonus sessions, we have a really fun live stream that Friday, and the following week I do a master class where I kind of do a summation of everything so that we really congeal what we've learned. And then we have a final session Wednesday, the 29th, about filling our retreats. So it is very specific. Each session is an hour. So like John and I are talking about all of these things in like an hour, but this is 20 hours. So you're going to learn a lot. And I am very practical in my teaching. So I think if you have anything in your heart about retreats, you need to be there. I guarantee there are people who have run over 20 retreats and will find information in this event that they did not know. And I can say that with 100% confidence.
Just so all of you know, here at Exchange, we put on a lot of events. And on occasion, we bring in different thought leaders. We have an event with a thought leader tomorrow, actually, Joe Pine, author of The Transformation Economy. As far as I know, Sheri, you are the only person going back 6 to 12 months. Actually, the last time I think was you. There may have been one other. I'm literally asking the team. Remind me, because I can't remember. And I don't know that we have a single person scheduled this year that we're inviting to our community where we are then saying, you all should go to that person's event. I'm trying to make a point that we have a lot of respect for what you teach and how you teach it. And somebody asked, is there a program on the other side of it? Of course there is. And you're open about it and you let people see how you're even inviting them into it. In a day where the way a lot of people market, there's things are hidden and disguised and then they turn into something else. Everything you do is the opposite. You're wide open about what you're doing as you're doing it. That's why everybody, Sheri, has 6,000 people coming, because the only way to make it as a marketer in this world is to give the way that you do, Sheri. So thank you for that. Thank you for that.
I love it. This makes me happy. I'm an educator. Like I said, I ran a surgical residency program. I love teaching. And it's really fun. The community is great. Like John, even in the Facebook group right now, you see people posting their pictures and their stories and why they have retreats in their heart and like from their background, what happened to them and how they went through something difficult and want to help someone else get through that same thing. It's like you want to cry when you start reading all of those comments. And so it excites me. And I love, one of my favorite things is actually to be transparent, because the event is the perfect example of education-based marketing. And so I use that and show them exactly what they could be doing to be growing their communities and filling their retreats. So they get it. It's fun. And we talk about it because I'm not hiding anything. I'm very transparent person.
I really appreciate you coming and giving of your time, sharing your work. I know a bunch of folks here will continue to learn from you. This is really, really meaningful for many who are here, Sheri, who are a student of our work at Exchange.
Yes.
There's this immense obviousness to how what we teach and what you teach works together. How many of you see how obvious that is? There's a beautiful overlap. So we're big fans when we get to blend our strengths. It's really, really cool. Do you all want to unmute and wish Sheri a great day or evening, wherever you are, or wherever she is? Go for it, everybody.
Thank you, Sheri.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Aloha kakahiaka.
Thank
you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Sheri, take care. Be well.
Thank you, John.
Everybody here, good to be with you today. Take care. Be well.